Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
Brought to you by GlanviaConnect.com.
Well, as usual, it's Kieran O'Connor here with your weekly farming programme. And this week I have a very special programme when I look ahead to next week's Cheltenham Racing Festival, and I talk to Waterford trainer Henry De Bromhead about his preparation for this year's festival with COVID and Brexit implications, and also his expectations from his string next week. Plus I discuss the impact and indeed the implications of the Elliott Saga on the Irish horse racing industry with Leo Powell, editor of the Irish Field.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanviaConnect.com, Ireland's biggest online farming shop and more.
Well, to discuss the impact and indeed the fallout of the Elliott debacle last week, we're joined on the line by a man very much with his hands on the pulse when it comes to Irish racing. Indeed, the fallout not alone for Irish racing, but indeed for the Irish thoroughbred and horse and equine industry, and that's Leo Powell, editor of the Irish Field. Leo, welcome back to our programme.
Delighted to be with you, Kieran.
Leo, last week we're a week on from the whole Elliott debacle, as I mentioned. The impact it has had on the industry, and a week on, what's your views on it?
Well, look, it was a most regrettable occurrence, I suppose we have to say, in the first instance, Kieran. I think that it's not reflective of the man or his yard or indeed of the industry. And, I think he at least has put his hands up now in the sense that he has accepted full responsibility for it. As we now know, he's had his licence suspended for a year. He'll get it back after 6 months if he, obeys the rules and as such. The damage is done both to him as a personal level, as a reputational level, and I suppose to the industry. I'm hopeful, Kieran, despite the fact that I think it was one of the most difficult weeks of my professional life. I'm hopeful that there are lessons to be learned, and that they are learned, and that we learn to build and we move on and build from it. Right. Because I think we could stay down in the gutter as such and feel bad and feel awful about it, but we have a very valuable industry, one that's worth €2 billion to the country, about 30,000 pending it for employment, and we just have to pick ourselves up and move forward.
As you mentioned there, Gordon did something very stupid that he now deeply regrets. Do you feel the suspension stroke fine is balanced and it fits the crime as such, or do you feel that it was handled well by the industry?
I think it was handled well by the industry. There's lots of comment now about certain aspects of it, so the British Horse Racing Authority putting pressure on the Irish Racing Authority, but I think we've got to really park all of those. I think, to be honest with you, Kieran, I think we have to look at the bare facts. This was a moment of madness, a stupid thing to do, but the last thing on his mind or anybody's mind was that this photograph would ever get into the public domain. It is not in any way. I think everybody from Ted Walsh down, everybody within the industry would know this isn't how he runs his business. It was a lapse of judgment. But, I think to lose your livelihood for 6 months at least, and it could be a year, and the reputational damage is more than enough. And regrettably, in these times, the social media fallout from it was incredibly hurtful, was vile at times, and I think the punishment more than fits what we'll call the crime in inverted commas. Yeah. Now,
we mentioned earlier about the whole area of animal welfare, how important it is, and just my dealings through my involvement with Tramore Racecourse with Gordon over the years. Anytime a Gordon Elliott horse runs, if you're picking the best turned out, my God, 9 times out of 10 you can nearly give it to one of his stables. So it's something that definitely didn't reflect the man that we knew on the outside anyway.
Oh, of course. And, listen, Gordon Elliott doesn't look after 200 horses in his yard on his own. He does it with a staff of 60 or 70 people who are among the best in the business. And as you rightly say, they win more best turned out prizes at the race meetings around the country than any stable that I know of. So, that's the reality. I think that, look, at it, in these modern times, we can do nothing anymore, but there's somebody watching us and there's a potential fallout. And I think, it focuses on all trainers and people in authority in whatever area, the responsibilities they have and the potential damage that can be done. But, I think, as I say, we need to move on from it now, because if we don't, this will just be a stain on the industry. And it's too important an economic activity in the country to warrant, to justify justify being damaged irreparably, as I've seen some headlines, by a momentary lapse by one person. I know there was a second incident. There'll always be things like this happen. And as I say, I've been a lifetime with horses. I think now he's paying a huge price. I think an enormous price. Nobody would wish to be in his shoes. And I think we have to now look at the much bigger picture.
Finally, as regards the industry, a lot of people on the outside may not realise the numbers involved. Not only in racing stable, and one hears of up to 80 people involved in Gordon Elliott's yard alone, but across the sector, the feed companies, the transport companies, the veterinary companies, the breeding, the stud farms, the equestrian side, like the horse and equine world. It's a huge part of the Irish economy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is bigger than certain farming sectors within the country, within the agricultural. It's also something that is beyond, the city bounds, because lots of focus tends to be on what's happening in the big cities and with multinationals or whatever. But this is something that absolutely feeds down. These are veins that run into every county, every town, every village of the country. Somebody will know somebody who has something to do with a horse, and I think that's very, very important. I appreciate that optics can sometimes give a bad impression, and certainly this is one of these situations. Some of the feedback that I got from people over the past week were from people who had absolutely, until last week, no interest to do with horses, and now all of a sudden, they're calling for people to be damned and banned for life, and things that were really, really not in proportion. So, I'm very hopeful that we will move on. I think, though, we need strong leadership in terms of doing it, and I think we need to be telling the good news stories that come out every week at business, but we sometimes just maybe keep them in our own bubble. There's a bigger audience out there for them, and I think we've got to reach out now.
Leo, and finally, on last week's editorial in the Irish Field, which is a fabulous weekly publication covering all aspects of the Irish horse, you said, our industry in sport is bigger than one incident, and while it has undoubtedly been a defining moment, we cannot let it destroy a generation of good work and effort. I think that really sums it up.
I think so. Well, I hope so. I had the benefit of being able to write something to which I believe was quite balanced. We're not shirking responsibilities. We're not failing to say that something wrong was done. I just think that we have to now, that the heat is a little bit off, and that we can step back from it, that we can look and see what the real picture is. But I think we have there's an onus on us all as well to tell that good news story too, not just assume that we can just continue to operate and it'll all pass. It will pass for sure, but we have to get out there and be very active in telling our good news stories.
And Leo, as we mentioned earlier, I think Gordon Elliott did something stupid that he now deeply regrets, and indeed, as you say, it's a defining moment in one sense, and it's a watershed for the industry, and as you say, for everyone to pull together for an industry that's so important to the Irish economy. Leo Powell, editor of the Irish Field. Leo, thanks for taking time to talk to us. I know it's Cheltenham week. We'll be talking to Henry De Bromhead later in our programme. But listen, thanks for taking our call, and best of luck in the future.
Delighted to talk to you, Kieran. Take care.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com, Ireland's biggest online farming shop and more.
Well, next week, it's the big week for National Hunt followers. It's the Olympics of racing, a very special week, and one man very much to the forefront and very much at the coalface of next week's activities in Cheltenham is our own Waterford trainer, Henry De Bromhead. Henry, welcome back to our programme.
Thanks very much.
Henry, it's a very special week next week, and for people inside of outer racing, the Cheltenham week is something that everybody looks forward to, and I'm sure you're no exception, and your team down in Knockeen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big week in our year. As you said, it's like our Olympics, the best of the Irish taking on the best of the English. So yeah, it's an exciting time.
Henry, you've had a great record there, and going back to size in Europe in 2011, and of course over the last 2 years you had two winners again last year. Cheltenham has been very good to Henry De Bromhead.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, we've had some good years there. Tough place to win. You know, it's fairly turbulent 4 days. You're running all your top horses there, and there's plenty of ups and downs. But once you can get out of there with a winner or two, it's great.
Henry, you've a very strong team going this year, not alone in volume, but indeed as regards and quality. And of course, last week you have 3 new animals and 3 new additions from the Gordon Elliott stable. So a very strong team, and indeed not the circumstance you would have liked to get these extra 3 horses, but a very strong team leaving Knockeen this weekend.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we're as you say, it's not the kind of circumstances you like to get these horses, but feel fortunate that Cheveley Park, their owners, were happy to send them to us. As you say, we've got a lovely team to go over with.
And of course, also you've the highly rated Envoy Allen, unbeaten in its runs. Really, one could say on the outset it's a no-win situation. It's a hiding to nothing as such. He's unbeaten, but how difficult is that transition, bringing a horse into new yard with new staff, new feed, new surroundings, and the whole piece? How difficult is that in that short 2-week period, Henry?
Yeah, it's obviously not ideal, but they seem to have settled in well. We're happy with them, and hopefully things will go right for them between now and then. And
you were quoted last week on the Irish Field that Gordon, actually, you spoke to Gordon on that and giving you the insight on all animals, which was a nice touch.
Oh yeah, Gordon, he was very helpful with the horses, and he filled us in as best he could. Yeah,
Henry, there must be an unbelievable buzz. I've been down your yard over the last number of years, the week before Cheltenham. The buzz really brings up the excitement. Has the effect of COVID and indeed the whole Brexit area affected that, or is the buzz still there in the yard in Knockeen?
Yeah, very much so. Still a real buzz around. Everyone's getting very excited. I'm probably getting a bit pent,
right?
But no, it's all good. Yeah, obviously there's plenty with Brexit, a lot of paperwork to deal with. Hopefully, we think we have all that under control. Then, obviously, with COVID, there's very strict protocols. We're all getting tested. We were all tested last week. We all get tested again before we leave. And then once we enter the race course, we're not allowed to leave. Everyone is staying on site, and then we have to be tested before we leave to come home, and then another test 5 days after we get home. So it seems, very strict protocols, and fair play to them for putting it all in place.
Obviously, as you mentioned, the huge logistics with COVID, indeed Brexit, so it's kind of a double whammy when I spoke to you last year in our preview piece. As regards the numbers going in staff, in the past you'd send a truck over early in the week and then that truck would come back and bring the horses for the Wednesday, Thursday. Is that all different this year, Henry?
No, that's what we're doing again. We're able to go in on temporary permits. The horses are able to go in, so there's quite a lot of documentation with it. Some horses will go on Saturday as before, and some on Monday.
So the Saturday horses covered the Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the Monday for the Wednesday, Thursday of next week.
Thursday, Friday,
yeah. Thursday, Friday. Yeah. As regards the whole quarantine and the protocol there, what's the situation both for staff and horses as regards the return home?
We're all tested before we go. We were all tested last week. We'll be tested again within 72 hours of leaving. And then when we get there, once you enter the racecourse bubble, the Irish area, you're not allowed to leave until you're returning home. There's no mixing in the yards with the English staff, and everyone has to stay on site. Like, you cannot leave the racecourse while you're there.
The new facilities there for the accommodation to actually stay there at the track.
I think Cheltenham, they've brought in a lot of cabins, and so it's all single occupancy. Unless someone is, they are living with somebody, then you can share accommodation. But other than that, it's single occupancy accommodation all over the track. And like I say, the Irish, we have to stay within our area, and then we are tested within 72 hours of returning back to Ireland as well. And then once you're back, you have to isolate for 5 days and then be tested again after that.
Henry, the build up to Cheltenham every week, as I mentioned earlier, over the last number of years, I've been down your yard the week before. One of the difficulties for you in the past was selecting the numbers of stable staff and grooms that could travel over. Has that been reduced, or are you allowed only a certain number per ratio to so many horses, or what's the story as regards number of staff that can travel from Knockeen?
Absolutely, yeah, it has been reduced. So, yeah, it's a tougher year on everyone working in our yard this year. We've had to go with a smaller number of staff. We think we have it all in order, yeah.
And it must be difficult, Henry. Cheltenham is such a big event. You have a huge string of horses going over, concentrating on the racing end, and then you have the whole COVID Brexit area and the administration. That's where I'm sure your wife Heather and Nicole in the office come into play, because without that support, it would be very hard to keep focused on what is your main job, getting the horses at their very best, hitting the start line in Cheltenham.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely been a lot more obstacles this year, but as I say, I hope we've got it all under control, and everyone's working very hard to get it done.
So Henry, as regards numbers, what numbers are you talking about travelling, first of all, as regards horses and staff travelling from Knockeen?
We'd hope to have sort of 18 to 20 runners, and then there's 7 of us to go with them. Yeah,
that's always a difficult one for you, and one that you always put on the back burner, letting the staff know who's going, and more difficultly breaking the news that they won't be travelling.
Yeah, look, it's tough this year. As I say, not as many people can go, so we've had to sort of let people know pretty early, because obviously with the testing, etc., whoever we were thinking would go had to be tested. Yeah. So everyone's been understanding. We know it's just a different year this year with COVID. Unfortunately, that's just the case.
So Henry, finally, just quickly going through your runners for the week. On Tuesday, obviously the big one, the champion hurdle, and the word is Honeysuckle. Obviously had the option of the mare's hurdle, but it looks like at this stage you're going with Honeysuckle for the champion hurdle and will be favoured to take the prize, the big prize on Tuesday.
Yes, yeah, Honey's definitely confirmed for the champion hurdle. She seems in great form since Leopardstown, and we're happy with her, yeah.
And of course Rachel takes the ride, and really yourself and Rachel, what year you're having, and hopefully it'll continue into next week. So having a jockey like Rachel must be a huge boost to the team heading over.
Absolutely, yeah. We feel very lucky to have her. You know, she's a massive part of our team, and obviously she has a great relationship with Honey.
As regards the other races on Tuesday, then you have the novice hurl, you have the Arkle, and indeed you have the Kimure as well. So you have a few other runners on Tuesday.
We do, yeah. We have in the Supreme Novices, I'd imagine we'll run Irascible and Ballyadam. In the Arkle, we have Captain Guinness. In the Mare's Hurdle, Manila Melody.
And the Kimure.
Then with Honey in the champion, we've Aspartar and possibly Jason the Militant.
And of the ones in the lesser races, is there anyone that you're really looking forward to seeing in action on Tuesday?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all of them. I think, absolutely. You know, looking forward to all of them. I think they all have, you know, everything we're sending, we hope have chances. As I say, usually a fairly turbulent week, no matter whether I think they have a chance or not. Sometimes it goes wrong, obviously, but they all have chances. I think Captain Guinness could be at a big price. He fell on his last run, and I think the better ground will suit him.
Right.
So at a big price, he could have a chance. You know, obviously we think they all have good chances. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sending them.
And then, of course, on Wednesday, the big one, the Champion Chase, and of course, going back to your first big win at Cheltenham, Sizing Europe. Hard to believe, 10 years ago, Sizing Europe crossed the line there as the Champion Chaser in 2011, and again, you'll have entries this year in that Champion Chase with Put the Kettle On and Notebook.
That's right, yeah. We've got Put the Kettle On, who won the Arkle last year for the Darmodies, which is brilliant. She's obviously been a super mare. Yeah, she's a big price, but the Arkle winners have a great record in the Champion Chase, and she comes alive at Cheltenham. She loves it over there. She seems in mighty form, so looking forward to her, yeah.
And Notebook really was very promising. I remember at a preview night in the Uluru, was it last year or the year before? Notebook was a horse that you're really excited about, but really it's a horse that might be suited by having no crowds there, because he's kind to flare up a bit before races, so it might be a blessing in disguise with no crowd there on Wednesday.
It could well be, absolutely, yeah. He was disappointing in the Arkle last year, but he's going there off one less run this year, which I think will suit him, and I'd say the better the ground, the better his chance. Thursday
then, you have the Ryanair. You have a strong hand again on Thursday, Henry.
We have, yeah. We've Chris's Dream on Thursday in the Ryanair Chase. He'd have an each-way chance, hopefully. Envoy Allen's in the Marsh Novices Chase. There's the Mare's Novice Hurdle with Tell Me Something Girl and Magic Day. So, yeah.
Finally, Friday, of course, the big one, the Gold Cup. And album photo with that great record, Intramore. Can he make it 3 in a row? The bookies think so, but you have a strong hand as well with Manila Indo and A+ Tard.
Yeah, Hopefully he won't. Yeah, hopefully one of our lads will get in his way. So yeah, they're both in great form. A+ Tard won a really good Savills chase at Christmas. He was very impressive. Stayed at it really well. He's in mighty form. We put him away and kept him fresh for the Gold Cup, and he seems really good. And then Minella Indo had a great start to his season, and just he fell then unfortunately in the Savills. So he ran okay in the Irish Gold Cup. We went out for a clear round, most importantly, which we got. And look, he comes alive at Cheltenham, and I think he has a great chance as well.
And who'll ride the horses in the Gold Cup for you?
Rachel is going to ride A+ Tard, and Jack Kennedy is riding Minella.
So Rachel and Jack, great combinations there. Listen, Henry, the best of luck. I appreciate you taking time. I know it's a hectic time preparing for Cheltenham. When you had in COVID and Brexit complications, really puts it a 24/7 campaign. Listen, Henry, thanks a million for taking the call. The best of luck to you. You're carrying the flag of not alone of Ireland, but indeed particularly of Waterford. I know your dad Harry did the business in 93. You had 2 winners last year. The best of luck next week. All of Waterford are behind you, and I know you'll do as proud as you always done. Best of luck to you and your team from Knockeen at the Cheltenham Festival. Thanks for taking our call, Henry.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And before I go, a reminder of our weekly livestock marts. Well, they continue with no ringside sales for buyers and sellers, and of course all sales now online. This Saturday as usual we've Waterford Ross Mart in New Ross with cattle from 9:30 and calf sales from 10. And don't forget their very special weekly dairy sale will take place in New Ross every Friday. While Dungarvan Mart, well, their weekly cattle sale will take place on Monday from 11. And a note in from Anne at Dungarvan Mart to tell us that calf sales have now been switched to every Thursday at 12 noon. And remember, all sales now online at livestocklive.com. And a good week again for local Waterford connections on the racing front before I go, with wins cross channel for Dungarvan native UK-based trainer Dennis Coakley at Suddle, Ballylineen native UK-based trainer Pat Phelan saddled 2 winners at Linkfield, while Cappajock Tom Quealy rode a fine winner at Kempton Park. While back home with wins for Tallow trainer Sean Ahern at Clonmel and Tremor native John Halley saddled a nice winner at Goran Park. Well, that's my lot for this week's programme. So from myself, Kieran O'Connor's goodbye for now. But once again, my thanks to Sean and Ollie for all their help in putting this week's programme together. So here's wishing the very best to all Waterford connections next week at Cheltenham Festival, and let's hope we'll have plenty of winners to report on next week's programme. So stay safe, keep up the protocol, and I'll talk to you same time next week.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com. Thousands of products in the palm of your hand.